Hello fellow YouTubers, welcome to another episode of Armchair Journalism, where I talk about different issues discussed in the news with credible cited sources and no influence from sponsors. Coronavirus, the most disturbing topic to go viral since planking, dabbing, or any TikTok challenge really. By now you've heard or seen the devastating effects of the coronavirus, regardless of where you are in the world. However, what isn't often talked about is the ungodly amount of cloth masks being sold all over the internet. From Disney to Warner Brothers, it seems like every company able to license their brand is willing to enter the market. I do have to admit though, that some of them are creative. Like this mask, that gives you the Joker's grin. And this one, that gives you the expression of a person who doesn't mind putting others in danger. You know, like a typical supervillain. Jokes involving the Joker aside, what also isn't being talked about a lot in the news is the coronavirus's effects on criminal organizations across the world. So in today's episode, we are simply going to answer the question, how are criminal organizations operating during the pandemic? Specifically, we're going to take a look at how Mexican cartels, the Italian mafia, and cybercriminals on the dark web have been faring against the pandemic. First, let's start with the CJNG, or the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación en Mexico, led by Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. As you may have seen in the news as of late, because of the coronavirus pandemic, the CJNG, like other cartels, have struggled to keep selling drugs due to the US southern border closing, alongside lockdowns, travel bans, and precursors from China, used to make fentanyl and methamphetamine, becoming harder to come by. These sets of obstacles have undoubtedly raised the price of the drugs they're selling, and decreased the number of drugs being exported. For example, it was reported by Courier Journal on June 8, 2020, that in LA, meth went up from $1,800 to $2,000 per pound. And on March 19, 2020, only 2 pounds of fentanyl were seized from the newly discovered Tijuana-San Diego tunnel, which Luis Shelley, director of the Terrorism, Transnational Crime and Corruption Center at George Mason University, said was much lower than usual shipments. Additionally, with some bars and clubs being closed, the retail portion of the drug trafficking industry is suffering as well. So what is Mexico currently like? As of September 21st, 2020, there were 697,663 confirmed coronavirus cases and 73,493 deaths associated with the coronavirus. And in March, there were 3,035 homicides reported by Mexico's Secretariat of Security and Civilian Protection. Although the CJNG has been seen giving out food in the state of San Luis Potosí, they haven't stopped engaging in violent confrontations. For example, on June 26, 2020, alleged CJNG members attempted to assassinate Mexico City Police Chief Omar Harfuch. Although they failed in killing Chief Harfuch, 2 bodyguards and a woman unfortunately died. During the first 4 months of this year, a total of 11,791 murders were reported by Mexico's Secretariat of Security and Civilian Protection, which is an uptick from the 11,293 homicides in the same period last year. However, there have been several debilitating blows struck this year against the CJNG as well. Mexico's Financial Intelligence Unit reported on June 2, 2020, that Operation Blue Agave allowed the Mexican government, along with the DEA, to freeze $1.1 billion in cartel assets. Additionally, the DEA reported on March 11, 2020, that their Project Python operation led to the arrest of over 600 CJNG associates. It should be said that the CJNG wasn't the only cartel carrying out a PR campaign to win over the citizens it terrorizes.
And the daughter of drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman wants to help people. These aid boxes are filled with toilet paper and food, and their masks show images of her father. The donation is linked to her company, which legally markets clothing and alcohol associated with her father's image under the El Chapo 701 brand.
This gesture is akin to being kicked in the groin, then being handed a first aid kit. So as most viruses do, the CJNG mutated and adapted by pushing for the production of substandard and counterfeit medications, and forcing many small to medium pharmacies to sell them, mainly in the states of Guanajuato, Jalisco, Guerrero, and Michoacán. For anyone who doesn't know, Mexico ranks 6th in the world when it comes to the illicit sale of substandard or counterfeit medicines according to the Mexican Association of Pharmaceutical Research Industries. Statistics from the National Chamber of the Pharmaceutical Industry report that the counterfeiting of drugs and their illegal trade leave organized crime with profits of more than 11.5 billion pesos annually. Most of the illicit medications that are being distributed are drugs that treat diseases like cancer, HIV, malaria, osteoporosis, diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, cardiovascular diseases, and obesity. Although these drugs are sold at a cheaper price, they may contain only a small amount of the necessary active ingredient, which is the case for substandard medications. Counterfeit medications, on the other hand, are not at all effective at treating anything, except, maybe raising a person's blood sugar, depending on what the placebo contains. From Mexican cartels in Mexico, let's switch on over to the Italian mafias in southern Italy. As of September 21st, 2020, Italy has around 299,506 confirmed coronavirus cases, and 35,724 deaths related to the coronavirus. Additionally, according to Italy's Ministry of the Interior, 106 murders occurred between March 9th and June 3rd, 2020, 6 of which were attributed to organized crime. As many citizens across Italy suffer from the effects of the coronavirus on the economy and other aspects of their lives, the mafia has searched and found a way to exploit the pandemic to make a profit.
Le autorità mediche ci hanno indicato di distruggerle immediatamente perché l'utilizzo di queste mascherine poteva provocare probabilmente anche la diffusione del coronavirus.
In Italy, there are 4 mafia groups that are considered to be the largest and arguably the most powerful. The 4 groups are the Calabrian 'Ndrangheta, the Sicilian Cosa Nostra, the Camorra of Campania, and the Sacra Corona Unita from Apulia. We're going to look at the Camorra, the Cosa Nostra, and the 'Ndrangheta. 'Ndrangheta, founded in the late 18th century in Calabria, is a confederation made up of smaller families that currently engage in arms smuggling, extortion, selling drugs, and cross-border money laundering. They are estimated to have approximately 5,000 members, and although they are based in Calabria, they are active in many European countries. They are estimated by the Financial Times to make about 43 billion euros or 49.76 billion US dollars per year. Currently, the 'Ndrangheta is one of the strongest mafia groups in Italy with control of 80% of the cocaine imports into Europe. However, their drug trafficking business has been slowed down by the pandemic when it comes to sales. On the other hand, when it comes to supply, the 'Ndrangheta and its partner the Gulf Clan, a cartel in Colombia, have managed to stockpile cocaine in case of an emergency. This cocaine is currently trafficked through Algeciras or Barcelona before being distributed to other European countries including Italy. Additionally, an investigation by the Financial Times showed that over the last 5 years, 'Ndrangheta infiltrated the healthcare system in Calabria, which rendered its hospitals less able to fend off a spike in coronavirus cases. We'll have to wait and see what the exact effect of this infiltration has on Calabria's hospitals, and on any other hospitals 'Ndrangheta have infiltrated. Now let's move on to the Camorra, which was founded in the 18th century in Naples and is also a mafia composed of clans. In total, the Camorra have approximately 5,000 members and participates in crimes like drug trafficking, racketeering, counterfeiting, and money laundering. The Camorra operates out of Naples, Campania, but also has a presence in different countries across Europe. During the coronavirus pandemic in Italy, they have been giving out loans that will eventually be coupled with high interest rates and giving food to citizens struggling in order to gain public support.
And when you have desperate people, that's when the mafia or the organized criminal gangs can swoop in. They provide food or they may provide money because they have the liquidity. And so they provide this kind of aid, but not for nothing, in exchange for recruitment into their criminal activity, whether it's involving drugs or weapons.
As of late, both the Camorra and 'Ndrangheta have engaged in both pushing fake antibody tests as well as loan sharking small businesses suffering from the economic effects of the pandemic. A typical buy of a fraudulent antibody test requires a person to give personal information, risk identity theft, and spend about $215. These fake antibody tests may or may not be effective and could give false positives or negatives. Consequently, a test taker's behavior concerning their adherence to social distancing guidelines and mask wearing can be affected, which is understandable. I mean, it would be like being shot at with blanks at point blank multiple times after being told the bullets were hollow points and remaining unscathed. A typical loan is given at a low interest rate. Then it's raised approximately 300%, and when the person who borrowed that money can't pay it back, they are forced to hand over their business, which is then used to launder money. The next group is one of the most well-known mafia groups, the Cosa Nostra, which was founded in the late 18th century in Sicily, and currently has about 2,500 made men, and approximately 10,000 associates. The Cosa Nostra is also made up of clans and participates in similar criminal activities as other mafia groups. However, as of late, mafia groups like the Cosa Nostra and the Camorra are on their last legs because of law enforcement crackdowns and internal infighting. However, regardless of setbacks, they are attempting to make a comeback during the pandemic by buying businesses at discounted rates and using those same businesses to launder their money. But they are not alone in trying to take over businesses for nefarious purposes. On July 24th, 2020, LA Times reported that Italian investigators had discovered that a web design company that applied for and received a $290,000 loan was not a genuine business and was run by the 'Ndrangheta. From Italy, let's quickly talk about Colombia, who as of September 21st, 2020, has 758,398 confirmed coronavirus cases and 24,039 confirmed deaths associated with the coronavirus. Additionally, the total amount of homicides between January and July is down from 7,385 in 2019 to 6,516 in 2020, according to Colombia's Ministry of National Defense. Currently, the paramilitary group ELN, or Ejército de Liberación Nacional, has been making headlines for their attempts to negotiate a bilateral ceasefire due to the pandemic. However, they have failed because President Iván Márquez refuses to accept the request unless ELN lets its hostages go and ceases its criminal activities. Meanwhile, the FARC, or Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia, dissident groups continue to dispute over contraband smuggling routes. Additionally, in 11 out of 32 states in Colombia, armed groups including ELN have been enforcing curfews due to the pandemic and threatening communities with the punishment of death should they break curfew. Human Rights Watch reported 6 killings in Cauca by armed groups due to the enforcement of coronavirus restrictions. This includes the killing of a farmer by the ELN. From the real world, let's now turn our attention to the digital world. Other than trying to spin a web of conspiracy theories, cybercriminals inhabiting the dark web have used it to sell fraudulent vaccines, as well as N95 masks, gowns, gloves, and the drug hydrochloroquine. Data gathered by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime showed that the website Empire Market had sold antibody tests, face masks, hydrochloroquine, and other medicines marketed as COVID-19 related medicines, such as remdesivir. Of course, the reason why this is a problem is that there is no telling what you're going to get in return for your purchase. You could receive substandard PPE, fraudulent COVID-19 related tests, ineffective or harmful drugs, or you could be scammed out of your money entirely. As far as recreational drugs are concerned, the Darknet is thriving during the pandemic. The European Monitoring Center for Drugs and Drug Addiction reported in May that Canazon, an online market primarily for cannabis, sold 1.6 tons of weed between January and March, which is worth about $5.9 million. Additionally, according to a study by Sixgill that took place between January and late March and measured purchases by correlating them to the number of reviews on the site, Empire has tripled the number of purchases made from 97,616 reviews on December 23, 2019 to 311,157 per day by March 23, 2020. In conclusion, the coronavirus pandemic has illustrated to the rest of the world that criminal organizations aren't invulnerable to the effects of the pandemic and are capable of adapting by exploiting people as well as the many facets of the healthcare industry. Thanks for watching another episode of Armchair Journalism. If you like this type of content and want to see more, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, as if it owed you a vaccine. so that you can be notified whenever I upload.